What if one of the most well-known illnesses in all of psychiatry isn't really one illness at all? That's the huge question at the center of the book, Secondary Schizophrenia. And today, we're going to dig into its core argument, using the first few chapters as our guide.
So think about it. For more than a century, we've pretty much treated schizophrenia as this single, specific disease. But what if we've been looking at it the wrong way? What if the symptoms we all recognize are actually just the final common result of many, many different problems?
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll explore the idea that it's not just one illness. Then, we'll look at how our thinking on this has changed over time. We'll get into the really important difference between primary and secondary forms, look at a common symptom in a whole new light, and finally, we'll see why this new way of thinking is such a potential game changer. Okay, let's get right to the heart of the matter. The brain is, unbelievably complex, but what if the number of ways it can signal that something is seriously wrong is actually pretty limited? And this quote from the book's preface just nails it. Think of it like this. When you get a fever, your body is screaming that something's off, but the fever itself doesn't tell you what's wrong. Is it just a common cold, or is it a life-threatening infection? The book proposes that psychosis might be the brain's version of a fever. It's a general alarm bell for all sorts of different problems.
Now, this idea didn't just appear out of thin air. It's actually the result of a major evolution in how we understand the brain, moving away from some really outdated concepts.
See, for the longest time, psychiatry basically had two big buckets for mental disorders. You had organic, which meant, okay, there's a real physical issue in the brain we can point to, and then you had functional, which was for anything believed to be purely in the mind, psychological, with no physical cause. This created this massive and really unhelpful divide. So, why'd we ditch those terms? Because they were built on this old philosophy that your mind and your brain are two separate things. But modern science has shown us that's just not true. Every single thought, every emotion, it's all biology. That old split simply doesn't hold up anymore. And that brings us to a much more useful framework, which is really the core of this book, the difference between primary and secondary schizophrenia.
So primary schizophrenia is what we usually think of when we hear the word. In medical terms, it's called idiopathic, which is just a fancy way of saying we've looked and we can't find any other underlying medical condition that explains these symptoms.
Secondary schizophrenia, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. It means those same symptoms, the hallucinations, the delusions, are happening because of something else. There's a known medical illness, an injury, or some other cause that we can actually identify. And just take a look at this table from the book. It really drives home how many different things can be the root cause. We're talking a head injury, something you'd see on a CT scan, can trigger psychosis. An autoimmune disease like lupus, which you'd find with blood tests, can do it too. Or even a genetic condition. The point is, you can have the exact same set of symptoms coming from wildly different starting points. To really make this click, let's zoom in on one specific symptom that everyone connects to schizophrenia: hallucinations.
And yeah, we're back to the fever analogy because it's just so perfect here. Hearing or seeing things that aren't there can feel like, okay, that's definitely schizophrenia. But like a fever, it's a symptom, not the disease. It's that general alarm bell telling you to look deeper to find out what is actually causing it.
And get this, the book highlights some things about hallucinations that might really surprise you. For one, it's actually not that uncommon for people in the general population to have an occasional hallucination, and it doesn't automatically mean they have a psychiatric disorder. What's more, they happen all the time on regular hospital wards, often caused by other underlying brain diseases. That right there proves they aren't just a psychiatric thing. Okay, so why does all this matter? I mean, who cares about the labels? Well, it matters a lot. This isn't just academic hair splitting. This distinction could completely change how we handle diagnosis, treatment, and even research.
I love this quote from the book's intro. It just perfectly captures the whole mission. Think of schizophrenia as this giant, mysterious boulder. The goal is to take a chisel and just chip away every piece that we can explain, every case caused by an infection or an injury or a genetic issue. Every time you remove a piece, that central mystery gets smaller, clearer, and hopefully a lot easier to solve.
And the impact of thinking this way? It is huge. For doctors, it's a push to always do a thorough medical workup instead of jumping to a psychiatric diagnosis. For patients, it could be a complete game changer. Imagine treating an autoimmune disorder and having the psychosis just go away. And for researchers,
It lets them focus their studies on a much cleaner group of primary cases to finally figure out what's really going on at its core.
So all this leaves us with one big hopeful question. By getting better and better at identifying all these secondary causes, all these different roads that lead to the same destination, could that be the key that finally unlocks the secrets of the primary illness itself? It's a thought that could really change the future of mental health.